friends. I am here with the developers of Cybernight's Flashpoint, the Trese Brothers. Guys, can you introduce yourself to us for a second?
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrew Trese. I'm the art director and story writer and for the studio. Do a lot of things over the years, but those are my main roles.
And I'm Cory, Andrew's older brother. I do a lot of the programming and troubleshooting, tech support, and some of the design for the games. Less on the narrative and creative side than Andrew is, but we share a lot of the responsibilities of running the studio day to day and keeping all our games updated.
Beautiful. So yeah, there's the delineation between who's doing what, because that's been something I've been curious about. So obviously the name of the studio is the Trese Brothers. I can presume you guys are brothers. And why game development? When did it start?
I think it started when we were like in elementary school. We made little like war games out of paper standees, and we were always trying to come up with our own rules for games that we had parts of. We'd get like one source book of a game and try and figure out rules so we could play it. That's really where I think our game design journey started. As a studio, we started like 10 or 13 years ago. We tried in fits and starts to make a computer game. And then we created Star Traders RPG. It was like right at the beginning of Android. Android development was really new and exciting. And we just sort of jumped in. We made a game. And we've kind of been off to the races since then. Before Star Traders, Andrew had made a couple of games. Hadn't you, Andrew?
Yeah, I had. Sorry, it's cracking me up. Yeah, I was trying to make an Open Settlers clone. I love that game when we were kids, but we only had the demo.
Mm-hmm.
So you could play Settlers to just this like maddeningly small amount of Settlers. And we never got the game. So that was like my first game actual development project, was to rebuild Settlers for myself.
I feel like we were always going to be a game developer there then. How do I get around the fact that I've got limitations in the demo? I'll just rebuild the game myself.
So it's like 10 years later, but
yeah. He tried so many times to recreate that game.
Yeah. So it sounds like, so one thing I wanted to know is like, why tactics games? Why strategy games? It sounds like it was always been there then for you guys.
I think I would say that it comes from the fact that it's always been role-playing games. So we started making war games and then kind of moved more solidly into like tabletop games and played with Cory's friends and my friends, and the groups merged together, like years and years and years of campaigns usually because we didn't like the systems that were available. We were usually making up our own in some capacity. So that's where I think honestly a lot of our stories come from. The world inspirations for all of our games come from those couple decades that we spent gaming together, and I think leads towards party-based, decision-heavy kind of RPG and tactics games, basically.
The first version of Cyberknights was a pen and paper game, handwritten on a stack of like college-ruled paper. I remember it was single-sided, and we drew charts with rulers and tables with rulers, and we spent a lot of time making up rules. And then we just like, Andrew and I were the only people that ever played it.
So this is something I wanted to ask. I actually had a little inkling. So one of the members of your community had told us that Cyberknights started as a pen and paper RPG. Then I assume it's not still played. Are you guys? You're still avid RPGers, I'm sure. Are you still running things in your own systems?
Yeah, we actually ran a Cyberknights game. What was it, 2 years ago, Andrew? For members of the community. And then we actually used a bunch of the storylines and decisions those players made in the pen and paper game to inform parts of the Cyberknights Flashpoint story arc.
That's incredible. So, what an opportunity.
That was really fun. Yeah.
What an opportunity for those members of the community. So the like community involvement, then this is something that is really obvious the moment like checking out you guys' website, talking to the people that have sort of come into chat and been enthusiastic about the game. It's been obvious to me that community is important to the studio. Can you talk a bit about that, about how the lessons you've learned, about the process that's involved?
Yeah, I think our dedication to the community started probably day one of Star Traders RPG. We put this really hilariously bad Android game out there, and we were like, I really just wanted Andrew to play it on his phone, and a bunch of other people downloaded it. And that's really where the community started. Is they sent us like amazing suggestions, like, "Hey, you should add animation," or maybe there should be sound effects in this game. And we were like, yeah, those are great ideas. And it really started from there. Like, so much of what's in Star Traders RPG was just suggested by people that played it on their phones, emailed us. At the beginning, my email was on the main menu. It was like, hey, if you have ideas, email Cory. Here's his email address.
That's awesome.
That's where the community started. Then we had like a forum. We've moved over to Discord now, as a lot of studios have. But from the beginning, the games have really been driven by player feedback, and we focus a lot on coming up with our own designs and what we want to do with the game, but never setting it too in stone as we go, because we really want it to be a game for the people that are playing it.
It's going to bounce off the audience. Yeah, I've been tuned into the development of Cybernetics Flashpoint. That's been really obvious as well. Let's talk about... Go on.
Sorry, there's a real practical element there of like, we would never have, as Cory said, he just wanted me to play that game on my phone. He was making something so we could do something like a little project together. And from that get-go, community became something that we do every day. And literally the reason we released the first game and charged for it was because enough people had emailed Cory saying like, well, you should actually, along with sound and animations, you should charge for this game. And it has become I think we both live in Discord and hang out with our people every single day, and wouldn't be sane in doing this without all of our community. So big shout out to the crew who keep us coming back to do this every day over years and years and years.
Amazing. So I've dropped a link into the chat, guys. For anyone who is watching us, if you want to get involved with this community, if you want to learn a little bit more, there is a link to where you can check out Cybernite's Steam page there. That will take you, obviously, to all of the places. I do recommend jumping into Discord. It is a wonderfully active community, and I just lurk and pay attention. But it flies by, and seeing the bounce of people, because this is something I wanted to get into. While I've got, it's a rare opportunity to get it from the horse's mouth. I have been repeatedly talking about this game as a turn-based stealth game. So could I ask from you guys, because I know that's not it. There's a lot more there. It's across the range, right? Can I ask you guys in a sentence or two, what is Cybernetics Flashpoint for anyone who hasn't touched on it yet?
Cybernetics Flashpoint is a turn-based heist RPG. So however you want to go about it, you are the leader of an underworld mercenary team, a spec ops team, doing the power players of the city, their dirty work. They're paying you to kill people or steal things or, wipe out an enemy gang. And you can go about it in a lot of different ways. You can totally ninja stealth them. They don't even know you're there, all the way to like throwing grenades and sniping everyone with super loud rifles. So our aim was to provide you that kind of heist experience. Part of that is that you're sent on a mission, you have a plan, and things always go wrong, and then it's time to go home, usually quickly. So that's part of the build out, is that there's this kind of growing tension. You're a small team. You have limited resources and time to be on site. You've got to get your job done, get off site before the big heavies arrive. So we kind of played into that, the freedom to do the heist how you want, but the premise that it is a heist. You're a small team and you got to go. So,
and everyone plays it a little differently and has a different perspective on it. I sort of see it as a strategic cyberpunk narrative simulator, because the part I really like, I love the heists and shooting people is fun. But a lot of times I'm doing those missions to an end. Like, I'm rescuing somebody on my team's brother because they are going to leave me if I don't get involved in their family business. And one of the things that's really unique, I think, about Cyberknights is that its narrative is very player driven. The people you work for will change. The people who work for you will change based on the kind of work you do, and who you take on the mission. And if you go quiet or go loud, the results will be different. So I think one of the really unique things about Cyberknights is that narrative aspect, that the story is extremely driven by you. You will make a lot of choices that go in different directions than another player. And some of the upcoming features, like the base building component, will push it even more into that strategy tier.
Sorry, just dealing with a technical issue here, guys. Thank you for... That should be resolved now, Brain. Thank you for letting us know there.
Thanks.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, so we can see, I can see there from the ground, like a lot of these questions, it comes back to the RPG heavy roots of the game, bleed through time and time again. I think it's a wonderful time for a game like this, obviously, in the wake of Baldur's Gate 3. Very lucky, obviously, that it's sort of woken people's desire for crunchy RP-led designs like this. Could you talk about the influences, sort of game-wise, for CKF, the influences outside of sort of its homegrown nature?
Well, I think, games that that heavily utilized their pen and paper roots, even as far back like Andrew and I's childhood, one of our favorites is Pool of Radiance. We loved those old gold box D&D games, and I think a lot of times we were imagining more of what was happening than it was actually happening. But that's been a big source of inspiration, is the trying to capture the feeling, maybe not the mechanics or the graphics or whatever of a game that we really loved, but the feeling that we got when we were playing it and really enjoying it. So how do we take those experiences that we treasure and create something that's new and modern and interesting that gives those same experiences? And we play a lot of role-playing games, computer role-playing games. I love the Baldur's Gate series, particularly fantastic. But also games like Deus Ex, I think, was a big influence. That game has a really interesting set of mechanics. Although it's dramatically different than Cyberknights, I think we are trying to give some of the same feelings that those games engender. I really liked Cyberpunk 2077 as well. And a lot of the feeling that there's many things going on in the world and you're sort of picking which ones are important to you, I think is a really cool aspect. And I think that comes from the pen and paper roots, because that's kind of how we run campaigns, is the players are going to be making the decision about which direction to go, what they think is important.
Yeah. That bleeds into, I think, again, the sort of that feeling of being a small part of a larger whole. It's core to the cyberpunk ethos. It's core to RPGs. That's some of the things that you want to give those players, is that feeling that, like, wow, anything I could do is just the first domino in a massive line of events. We see that play out in Cyberknights, I think, through, as you said, every time you finish a mission, it's not just for, or as well as being for the material gains, there's always a roleplay mechanical hook on that. So one of the things that I don't know anything about when it comes to the game yet, really, is how the base building is going to work into that. Are the classes going to sort of integrate into the different rooms, into the base building? Talk a bit about the classes and the base building infrastructure, if you could.
Well, base building will provide a lot of different options. There's a lot of different types of bases you'll be able to build, depending on if you are really focused on making your money with one system or another. There will be jobs that integrate deeply into the base that are coming soon, like the Hunter, which is like a dog-focused combat job. So if you want to have those on your team, you'll need to build modules to hold their dogs and keep them cool enough to go on missions.
Oh, amazing.
And then there's also drones. You'll be able to build drone workshops and craft drones and upgrade them. And then there's a cat. I think that'll probably be the last one that gets added because it's really complicated. But there's an attack cat assassin job, and you'll have to build a cat tree in your base so that the cat's happy. So the jobs and the safe house modules interact in a lot of ways, and your core jobs like hackers and soldiers and stuff can benefit a lot from your base in terms of getting different bonuses, crafting weapons. The base building also brings in a blueprint-based crafting system with the ability to do kind of, I don't know, Path of Exile is one of my favorite games of all time. It has a lot of really unique crafting mechanics. So some crafting is also part of the base building part. Which will tee into all of your jobs, the ability to craft specialist armor or tune weapons to your exact specs. Will give players a lot of flexibility. If they choose to build those modules, they might just build modules that focus on helping their contacts get missions done faster and better, and use the contact that they're able to level up faster to just buy better weapons instead of making them. So there'll be a lot of different options. I think that's one of the things that we're really focused on for the safe house, is making sure that it isn't like one strategy that players need to adhere to. You have to build these modules, in this order, but that there's a lot of different types of bases. We're really hoping to see players, exploit that mix and match mechanic and come up with their own unique take on how they're going to get through the game.
There's obviously boatloads of replayability that is inherent there. Is that the intended sort of structure for support of the game? I know there's a long-term support structure intended for the game. Is that going to be adding on, or sort of what are the plans for that?
Well, we're going to keep doing updates. I think, Andrew, maybe you want to talk about origin stories is a really interesting one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different areas that will continue to grow the game in. The story, as Cory was kind of mentioning earlier, the story system is has a procedural element to it, so that the brother that you're saving, who he attaches to, who that storyline attaches to, may be different in every game. There's certain prerequisites for it, but that may appear with different characters, and so the conditions that are set up at the beginning of the game, when you pick your squad, your own backstory, and the origin story, have a huge impact on what happens next. Who as like your characters, like Emil, the Vanguard in the default kit, knows a certain wire ghost who has certain traits and qualities that may make him more likely to proc certain storylines. And so that one of the big defining elements in that is an origin story, which is the question of how did you get your cybernetic, your quantum rider. The leader of the team is a cyber knight. They have this very special quantum computer embedded in their spine. It happens at the very beginning of the game, and it is always trouble. It's extracted from the spine of another dead cyber knight and transferred into you. So it has a history. It has people who have worn it before, people that might be looking for it, etc. In the origin story that's available today in the game in early access is you basically hooked up with a syndicate financier and took like a massive loan that you really I've seen people pay it back, like in the analytics it happens, but it's extremely hard to pay it back. So you have to work with her to find other ways to pay off this debt. You can feasibly do it. It's hard.
She's a suave operator, though. She kind of knew she was putting you over the barrel, and then uses that leverage to get what she wants from your team. You can tell her no, but it's a tough road.
Right.
All of the origin stories will center around that getting your cyber computer and what complications that comes with. Did you take a loan? Did a corporate shadow operative sponsor you?
And all of that kind of creates this like really fertile ground for the procedural generation story engine to take over and look to see who you know, what special flags we know about them, and who you have on your team, and what backstories they have, and then stories kind of attached to that, and then build off of that. And the attaching is pretty flexible, so based on the order that they come up, and who gets into what thing and who survives and who dies, you'll end up with a different set of storylines every single game. So part of the expansion plan is to push all the mechanical elements of the game. We're really update heavy. Star Traders is like on update, coming up on update 350. So we have this system of expanding the tactical elements. So rooms and or like base building rooms and weapons and contacts and all sorts of things will grow. And for Cyber Knights, the larger content expansion plan is to keep pushing new heist missions, new stories into the procedural generation that will allow, therefore, even more like an impossible number of outcomes to calculate to arise. And we think that's kind of our expansion plan. I don't know.
We call that thing the casting director, and Andrew sort of alluded to it, but I think it's a unique thing in the game where the story engine does not have a particular target for a story when you start the game. The brother story is a good example. It needs to find a character on your team that's from a street background, doesn't have a family entanglement, and maybe some other properties, but it's about the traits they have that you've picked up along the way based on what you've done or what you picked as your origin story, background combo. And then the casting director says, okay, I'm going to run this brother story. I want to run this brother story. Is there anybody on the team that fits the background? And then if they don't, then the casting director goes, up, that was a miss. What's the next story? And roll me another story. Oh, it's work aisle A7. Like, let's find somebody with a corporate background. Does they have anybody? Okay, they do. Let's use him. So that way, like, your playthrough, like, I rescued my hacker's brother who's a hacker, and they love each other, and like I take them on missions together, and if the little brother gets shot up, the older brother freaks out. You've got that dynamic. And then another player is like, no, I rescued my Cyber Sword's brother, like, she's really protective of him. I hardly ever take them together on missions because I can't have her distracted. So there's a lot of that, I think, and it works with context too. So it's like the story's like, I need a street person and a corrupt cop. Do they have a street person on their team? And is there a corrupt cop they know? Perfect. We're going to run this one. And that gives, like, it feels more like your story, I think, instead of us giving you a character being like, this is Bob, he has a brother, like, and all the other players also have Bob and go through his brother adventure. Some players may never have street people on their team, and they just don't get involved with those street
They'll never
jobs.
see those missions. Right. So, I mean, and that combined with because I don't know if you guys are aware, chat, but like there is an update every single day. If you head to the, every day, every week, Christ, wrote a check, you guys can't cash there. But like
we try not to do them every day.
Yeah, the pace of updates is staggering. Go and have a little look. And it sounds to me like with that in mind, by the time you finish replaying the game, or by the time you finish playing it, your next playthrough is guaranteed to be different by proxy of the people being different each time, but also just because the game's going to have gotten bigger in that time. Let's have a little, because I know one of the significant updates that we got just before this Proc Gen one added the Scourge, a new class, and I feel like the Scourge was a piece to inject into the conversation about the stealth versus loud dynamic that's going on. Can you talk to us about that process and perhaps the Scourge's intention and how he's affected things?
The Scourge is really cool. A lot of the jobs in the game or classes in the game require some type of cyberware. So to be a Cyber Knight, you have to have the quantum computer installed in your spine. To be a Vanguard, the stealth class, you need to have a skin implant of a chameleon skin that lets you do a lot of this projection and hiding. The Scourge's special implant is a chem hive, which is like a nano secreting sacs that allowed them to use different types of organic focused nano and nanites to do all sorts of crazy stuff. So they can release a small cloud of nano that will kind of cover them and hide their cloak, their biosignature, so that they can walk through tripwires and stuff like that other characters wouldn't be able to walk through. They can kind of like masquerade as a guard for a moment. They can dissolve corpses off the ground by like secreting this dissolving nano and targeting that corpse. They can create poison clouds. They're really quite, I think, the game came out with 6 classes, and the Scourge is probably the first that's really switch hitter in a lot of cool ways. They're like a trickster and a tank. It really depends on how you build them and what class. They have 14 talents, so there's a lot of different options. And along with the fact that you can multi-class in the game, so you can pick up to 2 classes for any character, it's sort of one of those points where for a long time we had 6 classes. It's super cool to see a 7th. Kind of blows up the combinatorial options within the game about how to build your character. And you can I think the Scourge in a lot of ways fills a niche of adding more stealth options. So you can be very quiet, especially if you multi-class into something else that's quiet. You're like making dead people disappear. You can shoot, you can like produce and push this toxic cloud in a direction, and people that come under it will become poisoned and just fall dead. You can use the organic nano to disorient a nearby target, and they'll just sort of wander around, not sure what's going on. So you can certainly play very stealthy with them. They complement a stealth team. They're a great backup to a vanguard. They're not like a full stealth ninja on their own. And then on the other side, they have of the tree, they're a tank. So they're tough as hell. They can use the nanites to like create a temporary like organic armor shield around themselves called Callus. Their shotgun wielding is their primary weapon.
Not very quiet.
So that you can be super loud and super tanky with them. And we've seen players building out that angle, which is really cool to see how powerful they can be, especially if you combine it with soldier or something along those lines. So they're really cool because it's I think the first part in early access, we've added a new class, and you can start to see just sort of how, when we get done with early access and we have more than 10 classes in the game, like add 3 or 4 more here, it's going to be totally nuts to see what people can build and give you so much of a range of quiet to loud. Our design goal has always been to allow the full spectrum from like, you can play not every single mission, but a regular kind of straight in the middle of the band heist mission, you should be able to play completely loud or completely quiet. They never saw you.
Right.
And anywhere in between. Yeah. And it also, the game has a flexible stealth model. So it's not, some tactical games, like the second you're seen, like a light switch gets switched on and it's over, right? You're like, oh, stealth is done, and now we're fighting. And that is not how we approach it. So you can be in a short, if you can keep it quiet enough or do damage control after the fact, you can be in a multi-turn engagement with enemies and clean up enough that it's not, that combat isn't like the rest of the level.
Yeah,
it goes back to being quiet, and then if you're careful, you can in fact could finish out stealthy if you wanted to, if your team has the kind of the juice in the tank to do it. Or you can literally roll in and just start like shooting all the, we didn't put silencers on our guns, we put the like E-rails and all the heavy like killing stuff on all of our guns, so we're just going to town. So it's been interesting. We've now run 2 community challenges in the community that have been really well attended and played by lots of players. And we kind of focused on making them on either end of the spectrum. So we said like blades only, like 100% quiet killing. It's very hard to run a loud blade team because if the enemy gets you at range and you've got a sword, like, so that leans super hard into stealth to beat the missions. You have to pretty much play quietly. And then we ran a challenge on the other end that was called Go Loud, which is like by turn 2 you have to be throwing grenades or shooting loud weapons, and you can't stop, and no one can be killed by stealth. So, and in both cases we saw the community members beating the content, winning levels, finishing heists, and doing awesome stuff.
And it doesn't dismantle the core experience.
Yeah, so that you can play that way completely if that's fun and that's what you're looking for. So that's awesome to see. It's very validating because that's what we've worked really hard to make that happen. And I think you can get, we've struggled a little bit in early access with it. The players look at the game and they're like, oh, stealth game, have to play stealth. The tutorial tries to teach me stealth. Like, obviously, it will be stealth from here to the end. I quit, or I'm not into that, or whatever. And so, it's a thing for us to get ahead of that. It's nice to have the community challenges of something to point to. Be like, look, here's the spectrum. Like,
definitely playable. Because that's something I noticed with the Scourge was like immediately I picked up the Scourge, and as you said, combining it with the Vanguard, it right away solved problems. I saw the ability to dissolve the bodies, and I was like, that's the one problem my Vanguard has. And I immediately took that tool, and it fit a specific, it fit the slot for me. But I understand that the conversation around the Scourge was that they are like the shotgun messiah. They have solved aspects of the game about shotguns and revitalized that environment. So
I like combining them with the sniper myself.
Oh.
I feel like they can also fix the sniper's problem of, oh no, there's people close. And then you just switch to the shotgun and start poisoning people.
And there are no
so
longer
there's, I
people
think
close.
it's really interesting, like that you went to Vanguard with him. My initial reaction was not to use him as a stealth, but to use him as like the close range for my long range fighters. So a lot of different ways you can combine it.
Beautiful. So one of the major classes that like I feel we need to touch on this because this is a huge aspect of the game, and something that I think the more it explains itself, the more interesting it becomes. Talk to us about hacking, about cyber warfare, about this pillar of the game.
Well, the first Cyber Knights game had a very sophisticated hacking system. It's probably mechanically one of the most complicated parts of the original. And we really wanted to have hacking in Cyber Knights in a way that wasn't just you get to a terminal and you press the hack button and the story continues. The hacking system, we really wanted it to be a first class part of the game. And as we get deeper into the enemy types and the Red Queen or the overarching AI's response, the matrix will become more and more interesting. But it is a system where we wanted it to be very much part of the entire map. So you can hack a matrix host and turn off cameras, open doors. Soon you'll be able to jam drones or confuse remotely piloted robot soldiers. So the hacking system, I think, is exciting because it gives players yet another way to handle some of the challenges in their heist. And it also gives you the ability to do some digital reconnaissance before you go on a mission. So there's certain like mission advantages or leverages, as the game calls them, that you can earn by hacking the security host before you go there. Maybe you want to know where all the loot is in the map. So you want to know the manifest of everything that's in all the loot boxes, so you don't have to worry about going to the wrong one. And maybe you just hack their shipping computer before you go and you steal that manifest. And then when you go into the level, you can see what's in every single loot box or treasure box or whatever.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's very powerful. That's incredible.
So
the other thing that I always come back to this, Cory, is like, stop talking about it. But hacking, it just provides, as a first class citizen, it provides a new type of class in the game, the hacker, that you need to either multi-class into or bring along on some missions. And it has a way of producing a type of tension in the game that is super cool for heists. In all the heist movies, there's always these moments where like somebody's trying to fiddle the door open and the guard is coming around the corner and everybody's like sweating. Come on, fiddle faster, fiddle faster.
Mission Impossible is what I always think of.
Yeah. And so the hacker is basically that character, right? There are matrix hosts on the map that are barring a door, and the only way to get that door open is to hack that host, or you've got to spike that CPU, like cut all the IC, get to the center of the computer and kill it so that we can go home. And that creates this like multi-turn challenge in the hacking space that's interleaved with the regular space. So the hackers at the terminal, I don't know how many times Like you've seen the awesome screenshots of the cyber sword is like mantling over the hacker, like putting up these deflection shields to like prevent the guards from shooting the hacker in the back as they're descending on you. Like Brave starts blowing the door open. You've got to go, but I need 2 more turns. And it creates a very cool space for all sorts of stuff like that to happen, where you're either like, keep the guards quiet for another turn, or I just need 1 more turn, lure him away and we'll get out of here, or they're shooting me, like I can't cut ice when they're getting shot. So I think that's another big part of it, is that as a first class citizen in the stealth combat and hacking, it helps create tensions in the map that you can't really get otherwise. So
I can tell you as like, you know, as a player, it was immediately obvious that's executed very clearly, where you've got this physical space that's incredibly important, and the interleaving, as you said, of the 2 spaces. We will do a little bit of hacking after the interview here, guys. We'll run in, and a lot of these things I'll talk about as we run through it. But I want to show you the interface, and it's like a maze. It's like a whole separate environment that the hacker has to navigate whilst there's stuff going on in the physical space. Just like it's integral to that heist attitude, and also integral. I touched on this before we sat down here, guys, but the timers in turn-based games are a point of contention sometimes. How obvious was it to you that the timer was required, that this is something that we need here?
I think the whole thing is about attention. So again, to come back to the core premise is so critical to hold on to when you're making a game like this, that we're on a heist and you can't stay forever, and we have to find a way to make you leave. And turtling up behind those crates and shooting all the guards is not really shouldn't be what we're here for. We have, for anybody in the audience who's recoiling, we have added custom difficulties to let you turn off timers if that's something that you're not interested in and you really want to play at your own pace. That's totally cool with us. We've added that capability, but to be able to sort of naturally respond to player events and to have a granular timer. So it's not just like a 1 turn goes by and the timer goes up by 1. The timer, depending on the level, can be like there's 15 units, and when you hit 15, then we go up, the pressure mounts and it becomes a big problem. Then you're at level 2 pressure and you get all the way up to 10. But it's slowly this building thing, and if you get spotted by a camera or somebody finds a dead body, then there's a big spike in that, and you have a consequence. And so, having that, not only like a mounting pressure cooker throughout, but the ability to have it be something that you kind of fight with, right? The security AI, this overarching enemy. Like I was just testing the proc gen levels the other day, and I was trying to break into this fortified street fortress, basically, that a gang is holding, and I turned off 3 cameras, and then somebody on the other side of the map found a body, and the security AI's response was to like reboot all the cameras in a level. And so I was clearing path, I was like getting ready to run in there, and it took that opportunity to kind of just like mess with me. Could have maybe summoned reinforcements or like something else, but it was like, the 3 cameras just went out here, I'm going to reboot the system. Like, oh, they're back on now. And so I have to deal with that. So there's like an adversary there, and you have team members that could, had Vanguard and an item that was also able to knock some of the cameras back out. I couldn't quite do all 3 again. And there's ways to sort of delay the security system from getting that response. Or if you have a hacker, you could stop that from happening, or the hacker could just like turn them all back off again and be like, yeah, sure, try that. But like, I'm just going to turn them back off again. So it's a very cool enemy to have, not just a pressure cooker, but like an adversary that you can think about that's trying to really kind of screw you.
And Andrew touched on it a little bit earlier about like tying off. You can get into a little gunfight, and the way that works is that each of the guards has their own AI and knowledge state. And then at the end of the turn, they can get on the radio and talk to the security coordinating AI. And that security coordinating AI only knows what it's seen in the security cameras, motion detectors, like the security devices, and what it's heard over the radio. So if this guard sees your hacker at the terminal and you bonk him over the head before he gets on the radio, the security coordinator doesn't even know what's happening. So that's where the kind of that the imperfect knowledge of your enemy can be exploited in the host. Like the security, okay, those 2 guards are down and they're going to come looking for them because they're not like responding to the radio anymore. We got 3 turns until they send somebody. So it's like figure out how to use those 3 turns to our advantage. Otherwise, the big coordinator is going to start turning on cameras, rebooting security devices, or whatever it's deciding to do. And I think that really drives that heist tension of, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. It doesn't know exactly what I'm doing, and you're just kind of in this race to get ahead of the different parts of the level so that you can win it the way you want.
And that, I think, a wonderful sort of analogy that I thought of there when you were talking about the timer is you can choose how quickly the pot boils, but like the pot needs to be boiling, right? And it comes back to the evocation of the heist environment as well. I'm somebody who, like, I hate to be rushed in tactics games. Like, this is why I'm playing a turn-based game. But the moment the first few turns started unfolding, it became very obvious to me that, as you say, this opponent that the enemy AI is, that the timer is so present and important. Yeah, it's in chat, Brain said very thoughtful design all round, and you can see how it weaves together. Is there somewhere we can sort of stay abreast of the future of CKF? Is the Discord the best place to do that? Is there a roadmap, anything like that?
Yeah, there's a roadmap I can post in the chat.
Oh, brilliant, thank you.
Hope no bot
guys
smacks.
Don't forget !ticket if you would like a chance to win Cyberknight's Flashpoint. We have a few different pieces of software that these individuals have developed. Very, very crunchy tactical games all round. Jump in, give it a try.
One of the other cool things that comes from having that environment where, to Brain's point of a nice design, like there's a real, there are places where it still kind of stumbles a little bit, but there's a realness to it that's super cool. If you're close to an objective with some of your characters, you can like go to the other side of the map with a soldier who has that really long, loud rifle and like truly make a distraction. Like he starts a gunfight, throws grenades, shoots people, and the security system, unaware of your hiding vanguard, is like, intruders, all the guards, like, starts calling away guards from the main objective and things like that. And you can get, these in setups because of that duality that Cory was talking about, where there's an overarching security AI and there's individual on the ground AI, and they share locally and they talk to each other at the end of the turn. But because they're all they're only working on their own imperfect knowledge, you can, as you start to grok that and get that in the game, you can start to abuse it and find ways to feel really clever. So I think that's just cool to touch on.
And then, like Andrew said, the Scourge has all these abilities, and there'll be more jobs that can do the same kind of thing, but to confuse guards, turn them against their friends. Scourge sometimes makes me think of Scarecrow from Batman. Like he can infect people with these insane hallucinations, and they just like start shooting other guards nearby, and that creates a huge distraction. And the security AI, hears all that. Guards are running over there, and you're like, I'm not even over there. That was friendly fire. So there's a lot of different ways that, and that will emerge, and players have come up with, lots of different ways to do it as well. Like one of the strategies we learned from players is like first turn grenades. You just like throw a grenade really far over into the corner of the map, and the security AI will send some guards over to figure out what that was. There was an explosion.
Their pattern.
So then, like Andrew said, then they're off their patrol paths. Maybe they left the main objective. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the guard that was at the Matrix terminal you want to use is off looking for whatever blew up in the truck depot. So there's a lot of different ways that you can exploit that for your benefit, and then you can purchase advantages that you can also use like on demand to mess with the security AI. Maybe there's an insider in IT that if you send him a text message, he'll like accidentally reboot the security brain, or scramble the HR computer so it can't send reinforcements. There's all those leverages that you can really feel like, okay, here's my plan, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and that'll set me up. course, it all goes wrong at some point, but like that ability to have this really player-driven plan of like, there's a lot of different leverages you can get. There's a lot of different jobs you can take on the mission, and giving the player that flexibility where they're like, I'm doing it this way, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to use this leverage and take this item, and then I'm going to hack this. And another player's like, no, we're going like straight at them with 2 scourges and shotguns. Like, we're not going to talk to anyone or distract anyone. We're just going to punch our way through it. So I think that's one of the things that's really exciting for me when I see builds in the game and mission reports that are just completely different from each other. Like 2 players just totally think about this mission like completely differently, and both win. And I think is really a goal for us, is to give players that kind of just really radical flexibility in their approach.
And it's undoubtedly present, guys. If you've been in like liking what you're hearing, I presume the folks that are here, you like the sort of games we play. I'm huge for things like agency, feeling like I've got agency in a game, feeling like my path will be different from others, that my decisions carry weight. These are all things that just ooze out of the walls with this game. I can't recommend it enough, and I'm so excited to sort of have been watching and to stay watching the development. We have an opportunity, we have a place where we can stay on the roadmap, knowing what's going to change.
Let me say, great places to follow us. If you hit wishlist the game, if you haven't bought it, or follow us on Steam is a great idea. We're on Twitter, and our Discord is always busy with people playing the game. So those are probably better. The roadmap is like a page that has a nice picture of what's coming.
Yeah.
But if you really want to keep up with like what's happening, as you were saying, there's updates every couple of days, like Discord, follow us on Steam, hit us on Twitter. Those are great.
The roadmap doesn't get updated every week. It's mostly when we cross something off it, we'll go back and be like, this milestone was reached. But then we do extensive updates on the Steam community, and then tweet like when new patches come out, new jobs, and so on. So I think that's for people that want to keep up with the development, there's a lot of places to follow us. And then the roadmap, if you want to think like what's the long-term plan for this, what's coming down the road, the roadmap's a good place to get an idea.
Yeah, guys, consider if you are, if you're keen, if you're liking what you're sounding, I lurk in the Discord, and it's so inspiring to boot the game up, to see it changing on such a regular basis. It's so alive right now, and you guys have mentioned the sort of inherent long-term support mentality of the studio, and the sort of involvement with the community there. I don't want to take up all of your time, guys, but please do remember, guys, to wishlist this game if you're at all interested. Wishlisting is it's free, and we get to put wind under the wings of people that are dreaming the dream and producing excellent games for us to play. Please consider dropping a link. The Discord, how do we find the Discord? It's available on the Steam page, I believe, Brain, but I will drop a link into the chat ASAP. Oh, Sparda's on it, I think. Gents, I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity to sit down and chat with you here today. It's been wonderfully enlightening and a real joy of mine to sort of pick your brain about the mentality behind the design. I think it's an important and special part of this studio is that sort of that mentality,
Yeah, it really comes back to the player first, and trying to let the player lead the game. It's I think that's one of the things that we really try to return to time and time again, is putting the player first in terms of who gets to make the decisions about how the game is played. Obviously, as designers, we have a big role in building the sandbox, but we do not want to dictate to the player what kind of sandcastle they're going to build.
What a beautiful way to put it. Guys, don't forget to jump in for the giveaway if you would like to. !ticket. Andrew, Cory, thank you so much for your time. I would love to stay in touch, and I will be playing this game much more to come, so thank you for the work as well.
Yeah, maybe we can
I
come back
enjoyed
and do it again when we have 5 more jobs to talk about.
I would love it.
Because
I
I
would
know
love
we'd
it.
love to.